Two. 1, 2. All right, so very good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning. I think it's not as cold anymore. We should be excited that it's a bit warmer. Let's give it a better good morning this morning. Good morning, everyone. That's more like it. Ladies and gentlemen, a very good morning to you once again. Welcome to the Local Content Masterclass. And this is quite an exciting day to see all of you here at the 4th Namibia Oil and Gas Conference. Let's give all of us a round of applause for showing up this year. I'd like to observe protocol as will be established soon. This is not the official program. Today is the Local Content Masterclass that is taking part as a pre-event program of the Namibia Oil and Gas Conference 2026, the 4th edition. My name is John Ikonja. It's a pleasure and privilege to serve as your Master of Ceremonies for today's program. The broader theme of this year's conference, From Decision to Dividend, Making Namibia's Oil Work for Namibians. And I think this theme really provides an important backdrop for today's conversations, because the real question before us is not simply what Namibia has discovered or what investment and development opportunities lie ahead. I think the bigger question really is how do we ensure that the development of these resources translate into meaningful and lasting value for Namibians. That's where local content really becomes so important. It's about ensuring that Namibian businesses are positioned to participate. It is about developing the skills and capabilities our industries will require. And it is about creating opportunities for entrepreneurs, suppliers, young professionals, and communities. And throughout today's program, ladies and gentlemen, we will be hearing from industry leaders, policymakers, international experts, and Namibian businesses as we explore how we can strengthen participation and build a competitive and sustainable ecosystem. So I invite you, ladies and gentlemen, to engage fully, to make connections and to ask questions, and most importantly, to look for opportunities and to turn today's conversations into meaningful partnerships. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Local Content Masterclass 2026. Let us begin. And I think just to set the scene for all of us, I'd just like to apologize for starting a bit late this morning. We were, of course, to start at about 9 o'clock, and we were a bit delayed. But thank you so much once again for being here. We will be having a wonderful and insightful 3 days of the Namibia Oil and Gas Conference. Thank you so much. Just a couple of house rules. For emergency sake, ladies and gentlemen, we have our emergency exits. That's on my right, that will be on your left, as well as on my left, that will be on your right. So if you need any information in terms of emergency, just contact our ushers, our ladies and gentlemen, our organizers who will be in those positions from the exit, so that you can get those information and also just easily find your way to those areas. We'll be sharing more of that is the information on the emergency as we get through the program. That will be later on, but for now, since we are just a little bit behind time, we just want to get straight into the program. We would like to thank our sponsors who have made this event possible. This event is, of course, being hosted by the Economic Association of Namibia in partnership with the NIPDB, Hans Seidel Foundation, our strategic partners, NAMCOR, SNC Incorporated, as well as the Rhino Resources. I will not leave out all our sponsors. I will be, of course, giving acknowledgement as we go through the program throughout the day. Without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, please allow me to invite the first speaker to give us a welcoming address. He is a very familiar person to a lot of us, the man behind making sure that this event goes as smooth as possible. I think he had a lot of sleepless nights, but he has made it sure that, of course, the 4th one will be even better and greater. To officially welcome us, ladies and gentlemen, and set the tone for today's program, it is my pleasure to invite Mr. Jason Kasuto, Chairman of the Economic Association of Namibia and Managing Director of Monasa Advisory and Associates. Please, let's give him a round of applause as we welcome him onto the podium.
Good morning. I'm glad that we're in good spirit. Just to recognize those in the room, forgive me if I do not acknowledge everyone that's worth acknowledgement. You are acknowledged. Today, as the Master of Ceremony, thank you, rightly and aptly put it, it's the Local Content Masterclass. We will have the official opening tomorrow, but I'll explain a bit why this is just equally as important. Dr. Abdumalik Halilu, welcome. Director of Corporate Services, Nigeria Content Development and Monitoring Board. Welcome. He'll be providing a keynote speech today. Mr. Travis Smithard, Rhino Resources Chief Executive Officer. Welcome once again. Mr. Ndakolo Haidua, Deputy Country Manager, Rhino Resources. Welcome. Representatives of the Upstream Petroleum Unit in the Office of the President, welcome. Representatives of the Namibia Investment Development and Promotion Board, Namibia Investment Promotion and Development Board, NIPDB, welcome. Representatives of NAMCOR, the Hans Seidel Foundation, SNC Incorporated. Of course, Mr. Ranti Omele, we can never not acknowledge you. Welcome, CEO of Radial Circle. Fellow distinguished guests who have traveled from far internationally and locally, Namibian entrepreneurs, suppliers, policymakers, industry, and the media. Once again, good morning and welcome to you all in the room where I think the real work begins. Tomorrow, the top echelons of government, of the Namibian government, as well as ministers, industry leaders, and majors will take the center stage and grab much of the attention. But I want to tell you why it was important for me to be here instead, especially in this room. It's because the heartbeat of this conference is not plenaries. It is really the master classes and the local supply pitching sessions. Tomorrow, in that case, it means that tomorrow is where Namibia speaks to the world. Today is where Namibia starts to get ready for the world. Some of you may have heard last year my analogy on Namibia's oil and gas industry and making a comparison with the bamboo tree, saying how the tree spends 4 years building its roots underground and shoots 30 meters above surface in just 8 weeks. Tomorrow, I will tell the plenary in the official opening that the bamboo has broken surface. But this morning in this room, I want to talk to you about something more practical, where the stalks of the tree gets to grow. In other words, which enterprises get to grow? And that's a very big gist for us at NOGC. It's the gist of why we do what we do at this conference. Because here is the uncomfortable truth about a boom. When the growth comes, and for Namibia it will, it comes fast. And it does not wait. The contracts will be signed on schedules set in Paris, London, and Houston. The question is not whether Namibia's oil industry will need catering, logistics, drilling, fabrication, housing, ICT, environmental services, finance, and law. It will need all of that. The question is whether it buys those things from you or flies them in. So the answer to that question is really what we're going to decide over the next few days. As I said, the gist of this conference and the masterclasses. I speak with some level of confidence because at Monasa Advisory and Associates, we measured it alongside Deloitte. commissioned by Total Energies and Shell with the backing of the Ministry of Mines and Energy, NAMCO, and Petrofund, we executed the economic impact assessment as a section of the Industrial Baseline Survey, and the findings carry two messages. The encouraging one is that there is far more Namibian capability than the skeptics believe. The challenging one is that the capability is not the same as readiness. Certification, HSE, compliance, quality assurance, financial records, insurance, capacity to scale. These are the gaps between a good Namibian company and a contracted Namibian supplier. And every one of those gaps can be closed. That is precisely what today is for. And here is what has changed since we last were in this room last year. I think our colleague, Mr. McLeod, is next door in the local supplier session, opening that session, but lots of thanks to him from the upstream unit. The National Upstream Petroleum Local Content Policy has recently and finally been approved by Cabinet, driven from the Office of the President. It is the charter for the opportunity for local businesses. And for operators and everyone in this room, please read it because it speaks directly to you. It requires operators to prioritize Namibian suppliers of goods and services. It demands the transfer of skills and technology. It promotes Namibian participation, ownership, and financing at every level of the sector. And it defines a Namibian company. Namibian company is one that is at least 51% Namibian owned, with at least 30% held by previously disadvantaged Namibians. Understanding that definition is important to structure yourselves and to meet it honestly. And the policy stops being a document, it becomes your competitive advantage. Operators will carry local content plans with targets and commitments as guided in the policy. And literally our job is for enterprises to understand that the plans cannot do without you. As I reach close, there are just three things that I ask of you before this day ends and before this conference ends. One, treat the readiness as your own project. Registration on a database is not readiness. We keep on telling our Namibian businesses. Ask the operators in this room exactly what standard they procure at, and leave today knowing your distance or the gap from it, and how you plan to close that gap or meet that gap. Two, do not grow alone. Do not grow alone. The bamboo grows as a grove or group, one root system feeding every stalk. Partner with each other. A consortium of 3 Namibian firms wins the contract that you cannot win alone. Joint venture with international suppliers that are here. Pan-African suppliers as well. And that is not charity. It's how Nigeria, Angola, Ghana, Guyana built their supplier base. Number 3, become bankable. Finance follows the paperwork. It does not follow your passion. Audited accounts, governance, a real pipeline, that capital can be found, whether it's DFI, development finance, commercial bank, institutional funding, instruments that are geared towards the industry and the sector to meet that entry stage, or where lots of risks sometimes may be perceived as carried. But that capital will only reach the enterprises that it recognizes. Finally, we are not walking this road first. Nigeria walked it before us with some hard lessons and some real victories, and had the generosity to send us the director who will be taking the floor very soon. We are very honored, and we intend, honestly, to steal your best ideas shamelessly. Ladies and gentlemen, tomorrow the world looks at Namibia. Today, Namibia gets ready. Let's make use of every minute of it. Welcome to the Masterclass. I thank you.
The bamboo tree. Very interesting analogy indeed. Let's give the Executive Chairman another round of applause. Indeed, thank you for the great work that you've done. And also, thank you really for hosting us on behalf of everyone. Ladies and gentlemen, just for a couple of notes in terms of emergency as well. In the terms of fire or medical or security purposes, for fire or smoke, please, ladies and gentlemen, let's make sure that we consult the organizing team if we detect any sort of fire or medical or security reasons, just to activate the nearest alarm if safe, and also to notify our reception areas just about the registration area. And for medical emergency purposes, let's also make sure that when that time arrives that we contact the on-site medical team on site. We have a team that will be here for us should we need services medically. For security concerns, let's make sure that we notify the security at the registration desk should we need their services as well. This will be a safe and a very orderly event, and should we need those services, please, let's just make sure that we go to the right places at the registration desk, or rather speak to all our members that are organizing the event to just make sure that we are all intact, and should we need those services. Without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, we now move to what I think the chairman has spoken about already earlier. And it's really about what Namibia is learning from other countries. As Namibia develops its energy sector, there is a tremendous value in learning from countries that have already, navigated the local content journey. Our next speaker really brings an extensive experience in developing local participation within the energy sector. I think as Namibians, really, we grew up watching a lot of Nigerian movies. I think all of us are familiar with that, all Namibians that are in here. But not only do we know them for that, I think their relationship really has not been content-wise on television. It has been through the energy resources that we, of course, are discussing today. The next speaker, ladies and gentlemen, is the Director for Monitoring and Evaluation at the Nigerian Content Development Monitoring Board. My apologies, ladies and gentlemen. Sometimes we get too excited and the mistakes just flow out of anywhere. Before that, we now turn to a very important conversation, a very important perspective from Namibia's emerging energy sector. I would like to welcome Mr. Ndakolo Haidua, the Deputy Country Manager at Rhino Resources, for a keynote address. Please, let's give him a round of applause as we welcome him.
This podium is a bit too high. Director of Ceremonies, government leaders, captains of industry, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. It is a privilege to address you today at what is undoubtedly one of the most significant moments in Namibia's economic journey. Allow me to begin by congratulating the organizers for once again convening a platform that brings together investors, policymakers, technical experts, stakeholders from all around the world to engage in shaping Namibia's future. This year's theme could not be more relevant to the opportunities before us. It captures both the promise and the responsibilities of this moment. It speaks to a future in which Namibia remains firmly grounded on its people, her values, her aspirations, while embracing the global partnerships, expertise, investments needed to unlock sustainable growth. It reminds us that success will ultimately not be measured by what is discovered subsurface, but how these discoveries are used to develop and create broad development and lasting benefit for all Namibians. This is why Rhino Resources has once again partnered up with the conference and become a headline sponsor. As operators of PEL 85, we are proud of the role that we continue to play in Namibia's energy journey. Local participation is not only a requirement in the oil and gas sector, it is a defining imperative for sustainable development. For Rhino, local upliftment means far more than meeting a regulatory obligation. It aligns with our belief system embedded in our DNA. We have created platforms to strengthen supplier readiness, expanding workforce participation, creating practical pathways for young Namibians to enter, develop, thrive within the sector. Rhino Resources has committed to ensure that Namibians benefit from the work that we do through partnerships with Namibian institutions, investment in capability development, and supporting workforce participation. We contribute to a future where Namibians are equipped to participate meaningfully throughout the entire value chain. Last year, I stood on this very stage to share figures that reflect our commitment, our transparency, accountability, and responsible stewardship towards the sector and towards Namibia. I announced that approximately 80% of our project expenditure had been directed to local companies, while 70% of our workforce was Namibian. In fact, during the drilling of Volans 1X well, Namibian nationals represented the largest workforce group on the project at a given time. From a local supplier perspective, we are also proud to be the first company in the Namibian history to utilize a PSV owned by a Namibian company, Breakwater. We deployed the Atlantic Ranger to support data acquisition activity from both Capricornus 1X and Volans 1X well. We later employed the vessel alongside Tidewater during our mob and demobilization operations to further enhance our operational efficiency. Breakwater is an excellent example of a local company that has invested in itself to participate meaningfully in the industry. Supplier readiness requires more than ambition. It requires technical capability, compliance and regulatory readiness, a strong safety management system, a proven track record of professionalism and reliability. These are precisely the qualities we identified in Breakwater, and they demonstrated how local businesses can successfully position themselves to participate in the growing sector. Last year, I also announced that together with Halliburton, Rhino Resources invested more than 130 million Namibian dollars to establish a technological lab at the University of Namibia in the southern campus in Keetmanshoop, creating a platform where the next generation of geoscientists and engineers could be trained. Today, I'm pleased to report to you that more than 150 students have already benefited from this center. Furthermore, we have expanded our commitment by selecting students from the program and onboarding them into Rhino Resources' first ever internship program. Together with this, we have also onboarded secondees from NAMCO. And the training focused on the latest industry technologies and practices, providing the interns and secondees with valuable exposure to real working environments. Importantly, the program was also carefully timed and to coincide with the drilling of Capricornus 1A, allowing them to learn from an active project, engaging with fresh data set, and gaining practical insight into the industry as the project unfolds. This initiative embodies our commitment to developing local talent and aligning with Namibia's broader development activities as we work towards a prosperous and sustainable future, even though we are just in an exploration phase that carries significant risks. Ladies and gentlemen, these initiatives collectively reflect a simple belief. Local content may be the requirement, local upliftment is the responsibility, and lasting local prosperity must be the ambition. I would also like to highlight that these successes cannot be single-handedly achieved. Government cannot do it alone, industry cannot do it alone, academia cannot do it alone, communities cannot do it alone. In fact, this reminds me of the relationship between a rhino and an oxpecker, which offers a simple but powerful lesson of partnership. At first glance, they appear vastly different in size, in purpose, and nature. Yet each contributes valuably and both benefit through collaboration. To those who do not know, the rhino is a rhino, and then the oxpecker is the bird that is always accompanying him. Yeah, to put it into perspective is the rhino usually offers or does offer protection, and the oxpecker acts as an alarm system. So it's great collaboration. In many ways, the same principle applies to Namibia's energy future. Progress to local upliftment will depend on trusted institutions, aligned objectives, a shared understanding to what success should deliver. No single stakeholder can succeed alone, but together we can create outcomes that are far greater than anything we could achieve independently. It takes partnership. And those partnerships must be guided by a common purpose. It must be about national development, it must be about economic diversity, it must be about expanding opportunity, it must be about creating pathways to prosperity for both the current and the future generation. As I conclude, ladies and gentlemen, when the future generation looks back at this moment, they must say that this was the time when Namibian leaders, institutions, her partners chose wisely. They must say that this was the moment when ambition was matched by discipline, when opportunity was matched by responsibility, when resources became reserves, when reserves became prosperity, and when prosperity created lasting value for the people of Namibia. As the saying goes, we did not inherit the earth and its resources from our forefathers, we borrowed it from the future generation. Today, we have the opportunity to honor this responsibility. And as we embrace the conference theme over the coming days, let us remain committed to building a future that is locally rooted, globally connected, open to all, a future built through partnership, a future that delivers lasting value, a future that benefits generations yet to come. I thank you.
Let's give Mr. Haidua another round of applause. Thank you so much for the insightful remarks, and thank you for the great work that you're doing, really making sure that the focus also is on economic development and building communities. So we thank you and the entire Rhino Resources team for the great work done and the change that you're really making, and what you're showing really is real. Now, back to my Nigerian movie story. I think I'm not going to touch much on that anymore, but I think just as we move swiftly through our program, ladies and gentlemen, we'd like to also acknowledge the presence that is Mr. Felix Omatola Ogbe, Executive Secretary of the Nigerian Content Development Monitoring Board from Nigeria. Please, thank you so much. Thank you. We acknowledge your presence, sir. Our next speaker, ladies and gentlemen, brings experience in developing local participation within the energy sector. Our next speaker is going to be talking to us about what really has been the navigated journey by Nigeria as far as local content is concerned. I'm speaking about none other than Dr. Abdulmalik Haililu. He is the Director for Corporate Services at the Nigerian Content Development Monitoring Board. Let's give him a round of applause as we welcome him, please.
Hi. My presentation, is it ready? Okay. Perfect. Okay. Good morning, distinguished delegates. I bring warm greetings from Engineer Felix Omoshola Ogbe, who is unavoidably absent, but he has sent us to represent NCDMB, to represent Nigeria, and to wish Namibia all the best as you navigate towards first oil. So my presentation last year focused on what we have achieved as a country, and we did communicate the importance of having a Pan-African approach to local content. Seeing the significant progress that has been made across the different jurisdictions, we decided this year to come with a specific case study of how our suppliers can come together, partner, and execute deep water projects. We bring experience from Nigeria, having successfully delivered several deep water projects, Egina, Bonga, Usan, and so on. So the conversation is around the possibility, but also what are those imperatives that will enable us to actually domicile these capabilities within Africa. Several African countries have implemented local contents, be it as standalone laws in Nigeria, like we have the NOGC Acts, Senegal, or even embedded in codes. It is also about using the oil and gas sector for industrialization, because the oil sector itself doesn't create the inputs that you need. You depend on other sectors like manufacturing, education, to support the oil and gas industry. So sectoral linkage opportunities is also what local content is all about. Most importantly, local content is about ownership of assets by indigenous companies. It's about being able to produce quality goods and also being able to have the right skill sets within different jurisdictions to deliver services within the industry. For that to happen, there's a strong value proposition in terms of ensuring, the last speaker spoke about their investments in the educational sector, in research and development. That is very important. There's a clear nexus between research and domiciliation of capabilities. Countries that have high intensity of R&D spend are the countries that have the highest GDP growth. So you cannot talk about local content without having research and development capability. strategic partnership can be fostered. The Orange Basin is a deep water discovery, just like several other countries. So it's also about ensuring that you have a model that encourages your indigents to own marine vessels and rigs, being able to acquire through a very structured funding model and ensuring that where those assets are acquired, they are utilized and deployed so that the day rates associated with those deployments reside within those jurisdictions. The manning of those assets is also by the nationals. It's about supply chain optimization, ensuring that from exploration, production, you have the right supply chain capabilities to support the life cycle of every asset. It's also about sustainable operations, ensuring that harnessing resources today does not jeopardize the future generations. And most importantly, it's about contribution to GDP and ensuring that you're able to produce locally. Having achieved significant local content presence in most African countries, the Africa Petroleum Producers Organization decided that we should have a Pan-African approach to local content. In 2025, just last year, the Council of Ministers signed what is called the Brazzaville Accord, ensuring that local content is no longer seen as localization across by different countries, but seen as a regional transaction. Because as you stand alone, Nigeria with 36 billion barrels crude oil, 200 trillion square feet, is not going to have the right impact compared to where you talk about 125 billion barrels, which is what Africa's reserves is, and 800 trillion cubic feet of gas. So seeing the market as Africa helps us to actually galvanize and attract the relevant resources that will deliver the services that we need. So the Brazzaville Accord provided the framework for supplier capacity development, skills development and transfer, harmonization of local content regulations, how we can form joint venture partnerships, and how to ensure that the government and the private sector collaborate to invest in major critical assets that are capital intensive but required to ensure that we're able to domicile those services in country. Now to our case study. From what we have seen in Nigeria and other African countries, we have developed capabilities to deliver deep offshore projects, topsides, umbilicals, subsea, manufacturing. Those capabilities exist. Now, looking at a case study of umbilicals, flow lines, risers projects, which is one of the packages in one of the major deep offshore projects, a $1 billion investment. Today, we're talking about Saipem, Evian as the lead consortium. You talk about fabrication, line pipe materials, marine and installation, engineering, and personnel. So the next conversation will be, how do we now change that trajectory? Those Nigerian companies that have been partners, but at the subsidiary level, how can we elevate them to become the lead partners? And then how can we also bring Namibian companies, Ghanaian companies, to form a consortium to bid for future projects? That is the essence of the next slide. Imagine an Evian currently working under Saipem, now being the lead consortium, galvanizing the likes of Belmet in Namibia, that also has fabrication capabilities, Delta Afrique, that has capability for engineering, Belmet, that has capability for suction piles, Metec, sacrificial anodes is also very important, from Tunisia, and of course, you have the likes of Penel in Angola, with integration capabilities, and of course, ENPPI in Egypt with EPC capabilities. If all these companies can come together and form a consortium and then bid for future projects, then it is possible for us to localize EPC capabilities across Africa, looking at the different comparative advantages that we all have and ensuring that we bring them together to bid for jobs. To achieve this, it has to be data-driven. We must understand the capabilities that exist in other countries. For Nigeria, we have what we call the Nigerian Oil and Gas Industry Content Joint Qualification System, and we track our progression in terms of local content footprints, be it in employment across operating companies, service companies, the number of fabrication yards, not just the number, but the capacities, design engineering houses, and so on. And we've also successfully automated our tools. Today, you don't have to come to Yenagoa, Bayelsa, to apply for a Nigerian Content Equipment Certificate or a Marine Vessel Certificate. All that has been automated. But the good story is that beyond what we are doing in Nigeria, Africa Petroleum Producers Organization is also creating a database to harness all these capabilities across Africa through what they call the interactive map, so that as you sit in the comforts of your countries, you're able to see those capacities and then discuss partnership opportunities. From our experience in Nigeria, there are 4 types of business models that can be explored. A Namibian entity company trying to work with a Chevron deepwater contract in Nigeria. Nigerian content requires that 51% Nigerian ownership is required, which means a Namibian company must partner with a Nigerian firm. But you can adopt it through 4 models. One is just to go in as a subcontractor, which means you don't need to create a new entity. You just provide your capabilities, your service offerings. It's part of the bid, and then the Nigerian company is the lead partner. That is fast and easy to achieve. But there are other models which are more long-term, incorporating local joint ventures, which means you have to now float a new entity between the different countries and then establish a new entity that is thinking long-term in terms of how you can explore the benefits of opportunities, not just one contract. Then contractual joint venture is also another opportunity where you have scope split by capability. So every entity brings its strength, and then you form a consortium, and then you bid for that job. Then reciprocal markets. This is where the Africa Petroleum Producers Organization and the AFTA come in. You give me, I give you. Just the way they do with Visa. You give us free access, we give you free access. So those kind of models can be also packaged as government-to-government arrangements where we say, okay, you have line pipes, we'll take your line pipes, we have anodes, you take our anodes, so that kind of bilateral relationship can also be discussed. So it's up to the business community. You have these 4 models just as case studies, but I'm sure as you discuss the business-to-business discussions, you can explore other windows. But the message is that there is an opportunity and there are models that can sustain this partnership. Local content is not just about policy and capacity. It's about being able to measure progress. So the message from Nigeria is that you should not see monitoring as just a compliance requirement. It is to determine the impact. To what extent has the Orange Basin transformed the Namibian economy from what it was to what it will be, and so on. It's about looking at your policy inputs, being able to develop capabilities and tools, being able to measure the impacts, the number of contracts awarded to locals, but most importantly, the domiciliation of spend and capacity within the country, the employments that are being created, the new businesses that are being developed. That is where you talk about the outcome focused. But most importantly, how has local content impacted the economy in terms of economic transformation? What new infrastructure has local content introduced? What technology advancements have we achieved as a result of local content implementation? That is the narrative that we would like to be presenting going forward. So this tool enables us to look at local content as not just a compliance requirement, but as an economic development model that enables us to look at the impact of localization on the economy. Distinguished delegates, in concluding my presentation, I would like to pass a message. Laws are good, capacities are good, but then Africa has a binding constraints in terms of restrictions to do business. The Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement has provided us an opening to ensure that we're able to trade freely among ourselves. So the efforts of the Africa petroleum producers in terms of harmonizing local content regulations is a requirement that should be supported. But then through the AFTA protocol, we need to ensure that we have free movement of goods and services across borders. We need to have free movement of people. I can see significant progress in Namibia this year compared to previous in terms of giving us visa access. That is a tremendous progress, and we believe that that should happen across other African countries. Sustainable funding is also very important. When you talk about local content, capacities have to be funded. Fortunately, the Africa Energy Bank is on its way. Hopefully, before the end of this year, we're going to commission the bank with headquarters in Nigeria. Afrexim Bank is also there to support and position to provide the necessary funding support. The interactive map will engage the industry. All of you, those that are stakeholders, will be engaged to see how that map ensures that capacities are loaded, but also opportunities are also seen across different jurisdictions so that you can bid for jobs across different geographies. So that is the message from Nigeria. We thank you for giving us this platform, and we look forward to a continuous, mutually beneficial partnership with the good people of Namibia. Thank you.
Another bigger round of applause for Dr. Halilu, please. Thank you. Thank you really for showing us that Namibia really has a lot to learn from industries such as Nigeria's. Opportunity to learn from the experiences and other energy-producing countries that you've just, of course, shared in your presentation this morning. Without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, we are a little bit behind time, and it's just now time for us to have our first session, a panel discussion that will, of course, then stretch into what Dr. Halilu just gave us an idea of this morning. And this session will explore strategies as well as, strategies around supplier development, skills transfer, enterprise growth, and sustainable economic inclusion. And this also just on that note, also like to apologize to ask the audience to bear with us a little bit as we will just stretch this upcoming panel discussion just a little bit into the coffee break, just by 10 minutes. So we'll be leaving the hall at 10 minutes past 11 this morning, and then we can break for tea. And also then just to our panelists who will be joining us this morning, and our moderator as well, just ask you to keep to time. I've actually forgotten to bring my yellow card, red card. A trick I've learned from my co-host, Rochelle Locke, that if I bring out the yellow card, please know that you're just about to, get set off the field. Or if I bring out the red card, you don't want me on stage. So please, ladies and gentlemen, let's just kindly bear with the time there. To moderate the upcoming presentation, or rather panel discussion, ladies and gentlemen, please let's put our hands together for Mr. Renti Omole, the Chief Executive Officer of Radial Circle. Let's give him a round of applause. Thank you.
Yeah, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I could see what Abdul Malik said on the improvements, the positive changes, the participation compared to the past events. And also, we've been challenged by the opening speech by Jason that today is for the Namibians to listen to the world, and then from tomorrow for us to listen to the Namibians. And also we've seen from Rhino Resources and also from NCDMB on the impacts of local content in the Nigerian oil and gas sector. So today, we're going to talk about the global best practices, and I have experts from various African countries that have started the journey years ahead of Namibia. And they've learned, they implemented policies, programs, they've measured the various improvements, achievements, skill developments, capacity development. So they have a lot to actually share with us today. So let me start by bringing my panel session members. The first is Mr. Otto Costudio, who is a board member of AMPG Angola. Next to him is Mr. Bolaji Osusami, the MD of Triumph Oil and Gas, who is actually representing PETAN. That's the Petroleum Technology Association of Nigeria, a service association that's over 30 years and have made a lot of impact in the sector in terms of investments. And next is my brother, Elton Tremaine, from ACLM Mozambique. Mozambique is a bit ahead, for gas. They have FLNG. They've got Cora South, and then having Cora North, and then they're putting together one of the largest investment in Africa for about 31 metric tons, 2 different LNGs by Total and the Exxon Group. And last but not the least, it's another brother, Dan Kikile, who is the Director, Monitoring and Evaluation of Nigerian Content Development Monitoring Board. So between those experienced resource people, we're going to go through how they develop their various countries in terms of local content, what local content is, and how it has transformed from just being a law into a catalyst to develop the GDP of their various countries, how it's created employment, build skills, capacities, investment in assets, and major contribution to the GDP. And then lessons to learn on how they've closed the gaps. So we have, they first do an introductory session for about 5 minutes each. Thereafter, we take 3-4 questions, and then we take the next one. Because actually, this is a masterclass, and it's supposed to be a bit interactive than a regular panel sessions. So on this note, Otto will start, and I pray that each one of us will listen, and we must take at least 2-3 salient points when we are going back home. Thank you. Okay. So, Otto.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So you can go ahead and tell us what has happened in Angola, the impact of your local content,
Right.
and how it has impacted. And all of us will do the same.
Right.
Thank you.
Okay, really appreciate. Thank you for having me here. It's a pleasure to be back in Namibia, our brothers. So hello from Angola here. Local content is something that we need to take it seriously. I can simplify the meaning of local content. It's made in Namibia, by Namibians, and for Namibians. That's what I call local content. Obviously, in the oil industry, we have a plenty of opportunities. So as you can see, the opportunities you will find within operation, with operators. So I'm talking based on my own experience. I'm a regulator today, but I used to operate. And my role was to identify opportunities for local companies, for local people. Because when you do that, you are creating an environment that you will operate sustainable. There is no sustainable operations without local content, period. I repeat, there is no operations in the oil industry without local content. Local content, local content is critical. And in our operations, it's always important for local people to be skilled, still work for your company as operator, and sustain your business. In Angola, we put together a local content framework, and we identify 3 regimes, contracting regimes. One is exclusivity regime, where companies 100% owned by Angolans, 100%, and we identify goods and the services that they will provide to the oil sector, and that exclusively for the Angolan-owned companies. The second one is preference regime. Preference regime is those companies incorporated and registered in Angola. So meaning company located in Angola, doing the business in Angola, so then they can work in the oil sector. And the third one, the third regime, we call free competitions. This is where any company can compete in those type of contracts. So I hope I'm clarifying here. 3 regimes. Exclusivity for only 100% owned companies, Angolan oil companies, the owner 100% Angolans. So we look at the shareholder structures also. And then we have the one we call preference. Preference usually are those companies that came from outside the country, they establish themselves in the country, they do partnership with our people, and then they provide the work, they provide the services. And then we have the last one that we call free competitions. So those are the contracts that if we don't have skills in country, any company can compete, any country can get that contract and provide the service in the oil sector. So when we implement that in 2020, the new framework, local content framework, since then we already were able to award some contracts to those regimes. And 97% of almost $60 billion of dollars contracting values went to a company located in Angola. 97% of 60 billion within 4 years. So One of the things we should be clear here, when we talk about local content, doesn't mean we are trying to exclude someone. Don't see at exclusion rather than inclusion. Quite frankly, oil industry is about inclusion, where we need to look at, for Namibians and for other countries here, capital human is very important. So what we did was, for each barrel produced, we took some percentage that goes to the tax training. There is a training tax. That money is allocated, is a fund allocated by the government to make sure the oil companies are training local people. So we're talking about organizational capability here in country. It's very important, and we track those. So I will park a little bit here.
Okay, I mean, thank you very much, Otto. And for those opening words, some key things I can take out of that is that exclusive regime, yeah, it's good because it ensures that those that have invested in capacity or have facilities in the country are patronized. And the preference regime, I think, is what we practice a lot in Nigeria. Collaboration between different local companies, yeah, where they pool capacity, or where through partnership they've invested in capacity and employ people. But what we don't do is free 100%, no partnership, no incorporation. In Nigeria, you need to have a partner.
Yes.
And then like with different levels, because it is through those partnerships that those gaps that you are not experienced or capable, you are exposed to. What you don't see, you cannot develop. By visually being involved, you can understand and grow the capacity. So straight away, let me go to Bolaji. You are from Petan. You represent more than 120 service providers in more than about maybe 60 different product lines and specialization. So what has local content done to your association? And how has it really grow your members and capacity? Balaji.
Thank you very much. It's great to be here again in Namibia for this oil and gas conference. And I'm very excited by the theme of this conference, from decisions to dividend. I think it's a great theme. Let me start by introducing myself. I'm here representing the chairman of the Petroleum Technology Association of Nigeria, PTAN. And that's an umbrella body for more than 120 oil service companies in Nigeria. This association has been in existence for over 30 years and predates the establishment of the Local Content Act. As a matter of fact, the association was very instrumental in lobbying to get that law enacted, and currently sits on the membership of the board of the Nigerian Content Organization. Yes. So how has been the journey for local content in Nigeria? I like what my brother just said about local content being necessary for sustainable production. Before the Local Content Act was passed in 2010 in Nigeria, the absolute retention value on projects in Nigeria was less than 5%. So we had projects, the Shell Bonga project, over $4 billion. Less than 5% of that went to Nigerian companies. there was a lot of restiveness in the Niger Delta in terms of agitations for participation in the oil and gas sector. There were a lot of Nigerian undergraduates, engineering graduates, that simply did not have jobs. There were no jobs for them. All the jobs were being exported out of the country. So all this galvanized and made it key to bring about the Local Content Act in 2010. And since then, to date, the value retention has grown to 54% as of 2024 of spend in Nigeria. That's the absolute value of value being retained in Nigeria. It's not been an easy journey. What it has done is has incentivized Nigerian companies to develop capacity, and that's a role that PITAN plays. We encourage all our members to invest and build capacity locally. Before you can become a member of the association, there's a pre-qualification process wherein you are audited to see that you actually have the capacity, you have the equipment, the tooling, the engineers, the necessary quality certification that is required to deliver on the scope that you say you can perform. So you are not just a briefcase company or fronting, you have actually invested in the resources needed to deliver on those projects. That has led to certain companies in Nigeria. We'll talk about the Domanlongs of Nigeria who have built significant fabrication capacity. We're talking about Avion Offshore that was involved in the building of an offshore buoy, completion of an offshore buoy for the Egina project. We're talking about companies, numerous other companies that have been involved in fabrication and welding. And the biggest, for us in Nigeria, the biggest highlight or showcase of success in local content will be the Egina project, the Total Egina project that was completed, I think, in 2019. And of that project, the top sides of the FPSO itself was completed in Nigeria. Later on, I will get into more details of how this project was executed. But needless to say, more than 3,000 engineers were trained, welders, 2,000 welders were trained, more than 2 million man-hours, engineering man-hours done in Nigeria, and it really opened up the country in terms of local capacity. So you need the enabling environment, you need the enabling laws and framework to ensure that local content is not just a buzzword, but something that really happens and delivers to the people of Namibia, just as it has done for Nigeria. Namibia, right now, you're just at the early phase of the oil value chain, and it is important. It's great that we're having this conversation now. You've done your local content policies are already coming up in place. You know, you have the advantage of benefiting from the experiences of countries like Angola, Nigeria, Ghana that have been further ahead of the curve. So it's just a great time for the people of Namibia. And with what I see, I know you're going to avoid the mistakes that countries like Nigeria have made and get the benefits, the positives of our local content journey. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Bolaji. I won't say too much about the Nigerian experience. So let me go back to my brother from Mozambique, Elton. You are the president of the new Cyber Association, ECLM, in Mozambique. Your local content law, it's been finalized to be implemented. There are massive projects going on in Mozambique. the Kora South, the Kora North, the Rovuma to LNG, and other things. Big projects, big opportunities, big demand for services. So how are your members or Mozambican service associations, how are you getting ready? How are the regulators, INP, operators, CNH, how are they assisting to develop your members? And what can we learn, from what you've done within the short 2-3 years? Thank you.
Well, Ranti, I don't think you're being fair moderating this panel. You started with Angola and Nigeria, the two giants in the industry, to Mozambique. Well, I would like to start briefly telling the story of Mozambique. This is my second time in Namibia, and there are so many similar things compared with Mozambique, and some of those, our experience can help you anticipating. When this whole thing about oil and gas industry started in Mozambique, there were agreements and contracts being awarded, and the country had no clue about local content. We had this discussion, just this little, on the investment's perspective, the investor's perspective. And then here comes the investments itself, and well, getting local indigenous companies on those projects was an issue. And this is where we start to understand what is this local content thing about. How can we get there? How can we improve that? Well, back in time, this conversation started to get, local content happened to be a very sexy thing. Everybody wanted to talk about local content. And it ended up being a political conversation instead of a technical-driven conversation. And this is where we waste a lot of time. And there was a huge friction between the private sector, the service provider, and the government. And then the association were like, okay, we need to do something about it. We need to learn something about it. We need to engage more. And we, as ACLM, we went to Nigeria, we went to Angola, to INGP in Sonangol. We interacted with PETAN and the authorities in Nigeria, Ghana, Guyana, Tanzania, and all those countries. And then we got back in country with knowledge and say, okay, right, I think we understand where the problem lies, so we can make a different thing in this country. While the government, under a lot of pressure of the private sector, was already drafting the law, and we said, oh, hold on. This might crash with another things. How are you trying to do the architecture of this law? No. This is to obligate the IOCs and the subcontractors to give businesses to the Mozambican companies, indigenous companies, and so on. And said, listen, there is a risk, a huge risk in there. You also need to secure the investments. It has to be both sides. Every law has obligations to both sides and rights for both sides. The point is, we need to get our companies ready. What are the minimum required things for this? What are the gaps to be fulfilled? How can government and private sector work together to support, help, and build capacity within the Mozambican service providers so they can enter to this huge opportunities industry? And this is where we started to cooperate. And right now, we have the first law approved in Mozambique, but still we have challenges because I saw recently a presentation that says the local content law has to be harmonized with the rest of the laws. For example, there won't be no growing in a serious manner compared with Nigeria and Angola in Mozambique or in Namibia if there is no knowledge and technology transfer. You might have the most brilliant local content law, but then if you have another law that restricts Nigerian people to go inside, Angolan people to go inside and do business and investigate and cooperate with Mozambican companies, then, how can you learn with those who are already in this industry for quite long. So we need to also address these regulatory framework challenges, to give support to the local content law so that it can be efficient. Me, as a businessman, leading a company, I need to go out to Nigeria and bring a Nigerian company that knows how to do EPCing, which is what I want to learn. And that company has to bring also the technicians, the expertise. So restrictions on the immigration law or visa or for work permits are also blocking what the local content initiatives, investments, and the law itself are aiming to do. So those results has to be driven and accompanied by different sectors of the government. This is how countries have to understand. This is what Namibia has to understand, that a specific industry law and regulatory framework and policies or everything by itself would not solve the problem. It cannot obligate an investor to give a $2 million business to indigenous companies that for 5 years or 10 years only have a 300 or 500 revenue, not even profit, to do business with. The commercial banks will not give money for it. Then how do we work together with commercial banks to make them real enablers to the service providers so they can address the issue of being financed and to deliver in this industry? So this is an octopus acting. We, as country, has to have tentacles everywhere so we can consolidate everything and create a ground, a sustainable ground where companies can provide services, can learn, can get knowledge transfer, and can grow. So in a short period of time, Namibia can be 100% owning this industry.
Thank you.
Beck, just want to say something.
Yeah.
A couple of years ago, we keep on hearing Nigerians saying to Mozambique, do not commit the same mistakes Nigeria did. Do not commit the same mistakes Nigeria did. And this is what experience brought out to understand, that the mistakes Nigeria was saying is that you have to open your country. You have to lead. You have to support your local companies to do businesses. And the law itself doesn't work. There is to be a structure to support it. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Elton. I mean, we can see from his contributions, consultation, learning, and partnering with more experienced countries in Africa and outside as one of the best ways of actually having the technical enhancement. You know, exposing their local service providers to people that have done it before, that they can partner together and be able to, collaborate and do that. And also about the free movement, simplification of the process, very, very important. Make it simple, let investors come in. When they have the sweet taste of the opportunities that are there, most of the compliances that you are asking for will come naturally, you know. And also the financing, you can learn from Nigeria NCDMB Fund and also their HCD Capital Fund. Before I go to Kikile, I'll introduce one of our members, Nute Ajaman, who is the board of the Ghana Local Content Committee, and he's also the president of the Consolidated Energy Service Chambers of Ghana. So Nute will speak after Kikile and tell us, what's been happening in Ghana. Yeah. So Nute, you are welcome. Now, let me go to Kikile. Kikile is the Director, Monitoring and Evaluation of Nigerian Content Monitoring Board, the administrator, enabler of Nigerian local contents. So can you tell us what your board what you've done over the past years to be able to assist and grow Nigerian service providers, avail opportunities to them, and encourage and work with them to grow capacity and provide necessary skills in Nigeria? Kikile. Yeah.
Thank you, Ranti, and thank you to the organizers for inviting Nigeria to be here once again to share lessons with Namibia, the rest of Africa, and other visitors who are with us here. We have been here 3 years. This is my third time of coming to Namibia. At this point, we're speaking not only to an early stage in the industry. We're talking about moving from decision to dividend and how to make Namibia's oil and gas work for the benefit of Namibians. What lessons can we offer from Nigeria? That's why I'm seated here. We've done our national content practice for 16 years. The Executive Secretary's presentation showed clearly achievements, best practices, competitive company developments that we have made in Nigeria. What's the lesson for Namibia? I'll say this. It's not how much oil that is produced in Namibia, that will be the determinant. It will be how your petroleum development creates national lasting value. That's the key thing. And to do that, we'll measure it in terms of the skilled people that has been developed, the competitive enterprises that you will have from Namibia's oil and gas industry, the industrial infrastructure, technology and opportunities extending beyond individual projects. It's important for us to lock this in as we engage in this conference in the next 3 days. Because developments go beyond single projects. It speaks to life of projects across decades and decades of existence of the industry. So Namibia can learn that experience from Angola, Nigeria, and other emerging industrial powerhouses in the oil and gas industry by being able to develop the skilled people that are not only needed for specific projects, but across the value chain of the industry for decades to come. Building companies that can be able to operate for decades and decades to come. To do that, you must adopt your national content as a strategic national imperative. In Nigeria, and that's something I believe we can also learn from, while it is good to have a policy initiative delivered from the executive at the highest level of government, I always emphasize the need to have a law backing it. And the reason is simple. Laws are not easily amended. Laws are not easily set aside. But executive orders, initiatives, policies can be set aside by succeeding governments. So my suggestion is to have a proper legal framework even as you develop your initiatives along specific upstream projects at this time. Secondly, I listened to Jason speak this morning and the representative of Rhinos. And I'm happy that you have already started developing the process of building a talent pipeline. In Nigeria, one of the greatest assets supporting Nigeria's oil and gas industry is the shale skill development project that was introduced for training of young engineers by Shell Petroleum Development Company in their early stages. Most of those who have now become industry players, setting up companies from PETAN to the Oil and Gas Trainers Association of Nigeria, etc., are products of that talent pipeline. So it's important for Namibia to have that pipeline of talents that you will be looking up to in decades and decades to come. Finally, for us, human capacity development remains a major key for developing of this industry. However, because you are starting, you must also be able to absorb talents from across Africa. I'm happy that Elton is working with a Nigerian team, a company, partnering on a project, and that company is part of what we call the Nigerian Project 100 companies, where we are at NCDMB developing 100 service companies that are not only strategically positioned to operate in Nigeria, but across the African continent. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kile, and the notable Project 100, which hopefully some of the African countries too, we try to understand more and see how they can have more service companies brought together, trained and developed. Now, let me go to Nute from Ghana. Ghana is gradually becoming a matured energy country after being there for the past 10 years, operating 3 FPSOs and a couple of gas projects, and also have a local content law administered by the Petroleum Commission. So from your perspective, I mean, sitting on the board of Ghana Local Content Committee on one side as a representative of the industry, and also leading the Service Association in Ghana, how has the local content law, has it impacted on the Ghanaian service providers? And how have you guys, from lack of oil industry experience, how have you, in the past 10 years, the Ghanaian service companies, how have you been able to rise up to the gaps and the opportunities in the sector? Nite.
Thank you, Ranti. It's good to be back in Windhoek. We were where Namibia is 20 years ago. We had a little bit of capacity because we've run marine industry, gas processing plants, and also a refinery. But we found oil and we were told straight that we didn't have any capacity. It's a different ball game altogether. So what did we do? We were very fortunate to have a vibrant associations in Ghana. So we put some few companies together to form an advocacy group to challenge the status quo. Fortunately for us, we were in existence before the regulator was born, our Petroleum Commission. The Ghana Oil and Gas Service Provider Association was in existence 2 or 3 years before the Petroleum Commission came into being. So we were right on the train before it took off from the station. Now, how do we do it? Because of our existence, through advocacy, we were recognized by the regulator from day one through the Parliament of Ghana. And we were right in the formation of the plans and local content law. We lobbied politicians to put us in the law that we have a permanent representation at the local content committee that is to drive the local content law. Now, policy and law is one thing. The implementation of the local content laws is the issue. Yes. How do you navigate your way Because you should know, the IOCs are businessmen. They want to quickly make their money out of whatever investments and get out. And local content is also not a sprint, but it's business and as well a journey. So it's a balancing act. You need to balance the art where the investor feels comfortable to put his money in. You don't want to be seen to be over-regulating the industry as well. So this balance is there. We're able to navigate this, and through our implementations of the laws, which we are still battling the foreign service companies on, we'll be able to put our right foot in. And we have identified certain services that we think within a year or two, when we start oil and gas, we'll be able to build those capacity and leave the big ticket things later as we journey in the oil and gas industry. Because the industry doesn't wait for anybody. There are certain services, I can assure Namibia, you don't have time and there's no need for you to go and look for those capacity because it won't happen. They will not transfer those skills to you or the patents. But there are low-hanging fruits in the middle level whereby Namibians should concentrate. That is where you have the technicians, the electricians, the mechanics. That is where the action is. And if you see how much their daily rates are, that is where you need to concentrate your efforts in. So the local content in a nutshell is business and it's a balancing act. And it's not one size fits all. You have to pick from wherever. We pick some from Nigeria because Nigeria was our big brother. They've had oil and gas for over 50 years. Their local content law is just 6 years older than ours. So we pick some good lessons from there because we have certain capacity and we don't need to go and start from where they started from. So we could hop, step, and jump. I think Namibia is where they can also take some few lessons from us and hop, step, and jump as well. Thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Now we have 31 minutes left from the screen. So we want to share it between few comments from the panelists and a lot of questions from the audience so that we have enough time to be able to answer the questions. I think to quickly round up from our sides, Otto, we just talked briefly. Otto and Dan, we just talked briefly on programs that their agencies aboard implement to grow skills and capacities. Skills of the Angolan Nigerians and capacities of the Angola and Nigerian service companies. Bolaji will just talk a bit on what collaboration and advocacy, how it had contributed to the local content policies. And I think same thing for Elton as well. Already, Nuti has spoken about that, so he wanted to talk briefly about skills and training and programs organized in Ghana. So, Otto, 2 minutes, yeah?
Yes, really appreciate. And this is a very good question here. I think we value people. The people we have is the biggest asset that we have in the oil industry. So we need to invest in our workforce. And that's because the oil industry by itself is very, very rigorous, where we have the risk around you. And having skilled people is a big plus for your company. And I used to say local content incident-free, or I can revert it, incident-free local content. If your people is not well trained, you will have problem running your operations. And most likely, you will be out of the business. The oil industry is about safety, is about creating environment that the people can work freely. And for that, you need to train them, bring capability. It's very important. It's the key one.
Thank you very much. They've stolen almost 25 minutes of our time. From 30 minutes, I'm seeing 4 minutes. I don't know what happened. So what will happen is we'll take 3 questions from the audience, and then my panel session members will answer the questions. So that's 1, 2, I need a lady. There are 2 men? Okay.
One, two. All right, thank you so much. I think we can just have the mics on the stands, or rather, that's even easier, just to take the questions quickly, and then we give time to our panel to quickly answer them, and then we can just break for lunch, or rather for a tea break. Thank you very much. We have mics on our far ends, that's on my right, in the center of the hall, as well as on my far left. Please, let's just follow those marching orders. Thank you very much.
Okay, good morning all. I would like to ask my friend, maybe Mr. Arturo, Mr. Bolaji from Petan. We know the power of associations, right? And the voices they can have to influence the local content. In Namibia, what masterclass can you give specifically to those ones who wish to associate to empower the local content? Thank you.
What was the question? There's a lady next. Get the question. What's the question?
What was number? Hello, good morning. My name is Jacira Ribeiro, and my question is open to all of the panelists. I would like to know from any of you gentlemen, what does a successful penetration strategy look like when a company comes into Namibia? Thank you.
Third question here. Good morning. I don't know if it's fair because it's 3 Angolans making the question. So if there is anyone trying to make a question, please feel free. But otherwise, it's not a question, it's more a comment. After 20 years in oil and gas, having gone through Total, BP, GE, and some of the most prestigious companies, I think I'm able to say that local content is an ecosystem and it's a journey. It's an ecosystem because no one can do it alone, nor the authorities in oil and gas, nor the IOCs, nor the associations, nor the banks. So it's an ecosystem. Everybody has to work together and understand the roles and the responsibilities. The IOCs have the roles and responsibilities to supply or develop, to train people, authorities to fiscalize, banks to finance, lawmakers to make laws that will enable it. Everybody has to work together in understanding that. So with that, I will hold it now, and I appreciate the time. Thank you.
Yeah, okay. Bolaji will talk briefly, 1 minute, on the power of association. Elton will talk about penetration strategy, and then I will just round it up.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I would love to answer this question. We have an experience here, right here in this room, of a company who's penetrating the Namibian market, which is one of our members. It's called Ash Sanding. He's here. He's investing in Namibia through a partnership with the local company. I think this is the best way to do it. This is the best way to go. We saw those 4 ways to do in Nigeria. It was presented. I think doing partnerships and JVs are the best way to do it. There is a company that is importing the knowledge and experience from Angola, Mozambique, Suriname, and it's now here in Namibia. He's meeting people, he's getting to know the market, he's doing due diligence, and is now on the final stage of signing the article of association with a local company so they can start a business. This is a good example, ladies and gentlemen. What Ash Sanding is doing is a good example of what companies, African companies, should do to enter not just Namibia, but different markets. And I would like to present Nono. Nono, would you please stand up? Nuno is one of the owners of Ascending, and Ascending is here investing. It's not a Namibian, it's not Namibian, and he's here to invest with Namibians, to do business together with Namibians, to do the knowledge and technology transfer for the Namibians. I think this is the best way to invest.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. One of the biggest problems we have in Africa is we all want to do our own things. We don't like to collaborate. Everybody wants to be their own local champion. We have to move away from that mindset and collaborate so that we have bigger capacity to do bigger things. It's absolutely key that advocacy groups like the Petroleum Technology Association of Nigeria is established in Namibia, because that's the only way you can advocate, you can ensure that the laws, the local content laws and policies take the interest of local Namibians into place. Now, local content should not be seen as a disincentive for investors, especially foreign partners. It's got to be win-win, okay? As the excitement of local content wanes, you're going to get into the reality of the cost and the quality of local content. You're going to start hearing things like, oh, it'll be cheaper to go with foreign contractors. The quality of work produced locally is not as good. So right off the bat, you have to start thinking about things like that to continue to sustain and attract investors, foreign capital, and at the same time ensure that the local impact, the local content laws are enforced, and the benefit and value retained in Namibia is significant.
Thank you very much. I think my last comment has to do with the penetration. Different countries, different investors, different penetration strategies. Also, whether it's onshore or offshore. Also, we can learn from the multinationals. When they come into a country, they have a small office, maybe 2, 3, 4 people, and they use that process to understand the system, do all compliances, markets. Immediately they see the opportunities. You see the business ballooning from 4 to 200 people. And that is one of the best ways. Also, the locals, nothing is free. If you want to have value and respect in relationship, you must bring something to the table. If you don't bring to the table, you become an errant person. But when you bring something, if it's just the local knowledge, local network, local compliance work, that I don't need to travel to come and do what you can do, that means you are creating value. It's not money, but the key things you put to the business. So on this note, we've exhausted our time. We wish we have more time, but I hope we all gain from this session. Thank you.
Absolutely, thank you. Let's give him a round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much. Mr. Omole and your colleagues, thank you so much for making the time to break down. I think there's still a lot to discuss, but thank you so much. I think during the networks, or rather the tea break, we will be, of course, be able to, rather than exchange with the audience as well during that time. But I just want you to have remain in your seats for now. I would like to call on Mr. Kons Karamata, the Chief Executive Officer of the Economic Association of Namibia. Welcome. Let's give him a round of applause, please. This is Mr. Kons Karamata to hand over some tokens of appreciation to Mr. Aranti Omole, as well as the entire panel here with us this morning, to just appreciate them and thank them. And then we take a quick picture, and then we break for a networking session. Thank you so much. All our panelists here on stage will be, of course, present for the entire conference. So we have more than enough time to network with them, engage with them, and of course, discuss more opportunities and learn from them as well. At the juncture, I'd like to thank Rhino Resources for sponsoring, that is this local content masterclass, as well as all our sponsors, or rather going into our gold sponsors who also have come on board for this conference. I'd like to thank, that is AFC Mercy, Copier Group of Companies SA, F&B RMB. We'd like to thank Explore CO, MC Dermot, Modec, SolarWant Group, as well as our official connectivity partner, MTC. Thank you so much for being a part of this conference. Like I mentioned earlier, we will be thanking all our sponsors throughout the conference, and just to appreciate what you have done by being partners of this conference and making it such a huge success already. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. Let's give them another round of applause as we see them off the stage. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we'll now take a short networking coffee break. Please, this is the opportunity to refresh, connect, and continue the conversation that we have started this morning. And just to also let you know that we have equally important sessions to discuss right after coffee break. So let's meet back into the hall in about 30 minutes, just for us to continue with these important engagements. Thank you very much. So we will see you in 30 minutes. That's at 11:45. Please, let's enjoy our coffee break.